Hello everybody, this is Debolina Babutta, Faculty, Department of English, Uluberia College, affiliated to the University of Calcutta. Today we are going to discuss one of the most popular comedies of William Shakespeare called Twelfth Night or What You Will. The literary text is there in the undergraduate second semester syllabus in CC4 for the honours students under CBCS system. Now before we actually start talking about the play, I must confess to a certain fascinations that I have with this play entirely for personal reasons. The first reason is of course that I studied this play as an undergraduate student and we had the opportunity to perform this play in installment during the interactive sessions in the class. And more importantly, the reason behind such fascination is because of certain familiarity or certain associations with the plot and its many ramifications. Now, why do I feel so very associated with this? Let us talk about the ingredients that the master artist Shakespeare pours here to add to the unique flavor of the play, and they are like the siblings, as we find getting lost in the plot of the play, love at first sight, the issue of love and its many trials, unrequited love, disguise, revenge, siblings who finally are finding each other, love being restored, etc. And I really don't know what do others feel, but I find all this, as mentioned, that form the flavor of the present play under discussion are very much the parts and parcel of our life, isn't it? Hence, I suppose such sense of kinship. However, let us start with our discussion. When we talk about Shakespeare, we speak of a man who lived between 1564 and 1616. He lived and worked during the reigns of Queen Elizabeth and James I. He lived in a period when there was considerable peace and prosperity, when there was social and political peace in the country of England, and as a result there was a lot of literature which was being produced during this particular period. Now we are privileged because we get to study 36 plays of Shakespeare, but for the time being we would concentrate Shakespearean comedies and Twelfth Night in particular with respect to its plot, theme and characterization. This present play under discussion belongs to the later comedies of Shakespeare, and this particular group or type includes Twelfth Night, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Much Ado About Nothing and As You Like It. Now when we talk of a comedy by Shakespeare, we talk not of a farce or slapstick, but we talk of a romantic comedy. Now Shakespeare's comedies are called romantic comedies not because of the prevalence of romance, but so much of the fact that all of these comedies ended in marriage. They end in at least one and sometimes in as many as 4 marriages, and that is why they are called romantic comedy. Secondly, these comedies happen to come with extremely strong women characters. And the next thing is, and it is very often said that the powerful women characters seem to be modeled upon Queen Elizabeth I. Now let us talk about the theme. The major themes of Shakespearean romantic comedies are themes of illusion, that is appearance and reality, deception, disguise, and of course love. Now, romantic love facing hurdles to reach marriage is usually a prevalent theme of such romantic comedies. There are usually young couples that happen to people the plot of such comedies. However, they eventually happen to overcome the obstacles, say the parental one or coming from the society, ending in one or multiple marriages. Think about the dialogues. The dialogue of such kind of plays remain very clever and witty. And there are also jokes embedded in dialogues as well, especially the puns and word plays. They remain a situational comedy, and they include stock characters like the fool or the drunken knight. Now both of them are found in Twelfth Night itself. Many of the contemporary critics and modern critics as well of the 19th century find Shakespearean comedies as festive comedies, as they center around certain Elizabethan festival and they show a world full of festivities and entertainment, and the people or characters are found in holiday moods. There are also the ideas regarding carnival, which we get to find in such plays. Yes, the societal norms and rules of differentiation in such kind of carnival are overturned. Now, let us talk about Twelfth Night itself. Twelfth Night was first produced having been found in a diary entry from John Manningham's diary dated February 1602. People are also of the opinion that the play was written between 1600 and 1601. This play of Shakespeare seems to have been borrowed from an Italian play named G.L. Inganati that appeared in 1531, or Barnaby Rich's story Apollonius and Sylla that appeared in the year 1581. Now the subplot, which is the major attraction of this play, is thought to have been Shakespeare's own. So after talking about the master artist himself and his typical genre that he gave birth to, and the flavor and characteristics of romantic and festive comedies, and after we talk about the publication detail and nature of Twelfth Night itself, let us look at the plot overview of the play itself. Now, what happens in a very first act of the play? We find Count Orsino of Illyria is introduced. He laments that he is lovesick and wishes that if music be the food of love, he could kill his unrequited love through an overdose of music. Orsino's servant is Valentine, whom Orsino sent to give his affections to Olivia, and returns. Now, Valentine was not allowed to speak directly to Olivia, but Olivia sent a message via her handmaiden, that is, Olivia will continue to mourn her dead brother and will neither allow Orsino to see her or to woo her. Then we have Viola. Viola lands in Illyria after a terrible shipwreck in which she was separated from her twin brother Sebastian. Viola hopes that her brother was saved, as she was. The captain, who also managed to get ashore, tries to console her of the hopes of finding her brother alive. The captain recalls seeing her brother in the water after the shipwreck, clinging onto a mast and riding above the waves. As it happens, the captain is from Illyria and tells Viola of Count Orsino and of his love for Lady Olivia. The captain also mentions Olivia's recent loss of both her father and her brother, and Viola, having lost her brother as well, rather commiserates with Olivia's situation. Viola proposes that she would serve Orsino, since he is a good and just man. She conspires with the captain that she may be presented to Orsino as a eunuch or as a page, and that her true identity as a foreign woman be concealed. The captain eventually agrees to help her, and he leads her to Orsino. Now we are introduced to Sir Toby. Sir Toby is Olivia's drunken uncle, is approached by Olivia's handmaiden, that is Maria, about his and he leads her to Orsino. Now we are introduced to Sir Toby. Sir Toby is Olivia's drunken uncle, is approached by Olivia's handmaiden, that is Maria, about his late hours and disorderly habits. Maria also objects to one of Sir Toby's drinking buddies, that is Sir Andrew Aguecheek, a rather foolish man who Sir Toby has brought as a potential suitor to Olivia. Sir Toby has great affection for Sir Andrew, but Maria does not. She believes that Sir Andrew is a drunkard and a fool and not to be suffered. Sir Toby attempts to introduce Sir Andrew to Maria. Wordplay ensues from a series of misunderstandings, puns, and differing usages of words. Maria exits, and Sir Toby and Sir Andrew continue to quibble with some amusing results. At last, they decide to start drinking. Viola has now disguised himself as a boy, Cesario name, and has been taken into the service of Count Orsino. Valentine remarks that Orsino and Viola as Cesario have become close in the short time that Viola has been employed. Indeed, Orsino has already told Viola of his great love for Olivia. Orsino asks Viola to go to Olivia and make Orsino's case to the lady. Viola says she will obey, although she confesses in an aside that she already feels love for Orsino and would rather be his wife than try to woo Olivia for him. Feste first appears in the play in Act 1. Olivia enters with her attendants and is somewhat displeased and short with Feste. Feste says she is a fool for mourning her brother if she knows that her brother is in heaven. Viola, that is playing the role of Cesario, arrives at Olivia's house and is admitted after much waiting and being examined by both Sir Toby and Malvolio. Viola is brought in to meet Olivia, who finds out Olivia is a messenger on Orsino's behalf, and Olivia discourages Viola from wooing her for the Count. Viola tries to make Orsino suit but is unsuccessful. Olivia begins to show interest in Viola as Cesario in this scene. Viola is sent away at last, and Olivia has Malvolio go after her Viola with a ring and invitation to come back on the very next day. And thus we come to the very second act of the play. Here Sebastian, Viola's brother, is shown alive and in the company of Antonio, a somewhat shady sea captain. Sebastian tells Antonio of her sister Viola, who he fears has been drowned. He thanks Antonio for his kindness in saving him and resolves that he must be off alone. Malvolio catches up to Viola with the ring he has instructed to give Viola by Olivia. Viola is surprised since she left no ring with Olivia. Malvolio grows impatient with Viola, throws it down onto the ground and storms off. Viola realizes that the ring is a proof that Olivia has some affection for her as Cesario. She regrets that Olivia is in love with her disguise, as that will come to nothing, and also that she is in love with her master, but that she can do nothing in her present disguise. Now Sir Toby and Andrew are up late, drinking, and Feste joins them. They proceed to make a great deal of noise by singing, drinking, and talking nonsense. Maria tries to get them to be quiet, but Malvolio is awakened by the noise and comes down to breathe them for disturbing the household. Once Malvolio leaves, Maria concocts a plan to make Malvolio look like a complete fool. She will write love letters to Malvolio and make it look like the letters have come from Olivia. The party decides to try this out and see if it will work. Maria leaves to go to bed, and Sir Toby and Sir Andrew decide to drink the rest of the night away. Now Orsino calls upon Feste to sing an old song that pleases him very well. Orsino then begins to talk to Viola as Cesario of love and its imperfections. Orsino compares women to roses whose fair flower being once displayed doth fall that very hour. Viola does not approve of Orsino's slightly cynical view of women. Now, Viola attempts to soothe Orsino's melancholy by getting him to accept that Olivia might not love him, but that perhaps another woman does. Orsino counters this with the argument that women are very inconstant in their love and could not have a feeling as deep as the love he has for Olivia. Viola knows that this is not true, in light of the great amount of feeling she has for Orsino. She attempts to persuade him that women are as true of heart as men by telling him stories she makes up about a sister that loved only too constantly and too well. Orsino asks Viola to go again to Olivia and make his suit, and Viola obeys. Now Maria appears with a love letter she has written for the purposes of baiting Malvolio. Sir Toby, Sir Andrew and their friend Fabian are present. They hide behind a tree as Malvolio approaches, and Maria places the letter somewhere where he is certain to find it. Malvolio approaches, already muttering nonsense about thinking that Olivia fancies him and about how things would be if they were married. This angers Sir Toby and Sir Andrew, who want to beat Malvolio for this pretension. Malvolio finally spots the letter and thinks he recognizes the handwriting as Olivia's. He takes the bait completely. Now, Viola in Act 3 enters. On her way to see Olivia, she comes across Feste, who is full of wit and foolery. As usual, Feste expresses his dislike for Viola, which Viola does not take personally. Viola gives him a few coins for his wordplay and mentions the wit that it takes to act the fool as well as Feste does. Olivia then comes to meet Viola, and Viola again attempts to make Orsino's case. Now Olivia confesses her affection for Viola, playing the role of Cesario, and begs to know if Viola does indeed feel the same way. Viola says no, then asks again if Olivia will have anything to do with Orsino. Olivia is constant in her lack of response to Orsino, but makes one last attempt to win Cesario over. Viola warns Olivia as best as she can, telling Olivia that I am not what I am, though Olivia does not guess at the statement's real meaning. And this appears, you see, as you can remember from the classes that we had before this lockdown period, this appears in Act 3, Scene 1. Viola leaves, but not without an entry to return. Sir Andrew finally comes to his senses, realizing that Olivia's favor. His friend Fabian tries to convince him that Olivia is just trying to make him jealous. This does not soothe Sir Andrew's anger. Sir Toby then persuades Sir Andrew that he should challenge Cesario to a duel. Sir Toby tells him to write a letter of challenge, which Sir Toby will deliver. Now, Toby actually has no intent of sponsoring a duel, but thinks the exercise might cool Sir Andrew off a little. Antonio fears some accident may happen to Sebastian since he is completely ignorant of the country. Sebastian wants to go about and see the sights, but Antonio tells him that he cannot. Antonio confesses that he was involved with some piracy against Illyria and that he is wanted. Antonio fears some accident may happen to Sebastian since he is completely ignorant of the country. Sebastian wants to go about and see the sights, but Antonio tells him that he cannot. Antonio confesses that he was involved with some piracy against Illyria and that he is wanted by the Count because of it. Antonio proposes that they meet up at an inn 1 hour and that Sebastian can wander about until then. Maria warns Olivia of Malvolio's very strange behavior. Malvolio is wearing a yellow cross-gartered stockings, which Olivia abhors. Malvolio continues his absurdity, making remarks of unwarranted familiarity and completely baffling Olivia with his misguided attempts to be amorous toward her. Olivia now dismisses Malvolio's odd behavior as being some kind of passing madness and orders that Malvolio be looked after. Now Sir Toby, Maria and Fabian approach Malvolio. They treat Malvolio's case as an instance of witchcraft or possession. Not satisfied with the havoc they have already caused, they decide to make Malvolio go mad if they can. Sir Andrew returns with his saucy letter for Cesario and Viola as Cesario appears, having patched up any bad feeling with Olivia over their last dramatic scene. Now Sir Toby conveys Sir Andrew's challenge to Viola and tries to make Viola shrink from the confrontation by greatly exaggerating Sir Andrew's meanness and anger. Sir Andrew and Viola come close to some sort of reluctant confrontation when Antonio stumbles on them. Now Antonio is arrested by the officers of the Count and asks Viola for his purse, mistaking Viola for her brother Sebastian. Antonio is taken aback when Viola will not give him his purse, thinking that she, as Sebastian, is ungrateful for his help. He speaks of rescuing Sebastian from drowning, which lets Viola know that her brother might be alive. Viola hopes that what Antonio said is indeed true and that her brother might have been saved from the wreck. And thus we come to the fourth act of this play. Now Feste approaches Sebastian thinking that Sebastian is Cesario when Sebastian tells Feste that he does not know him nor Olivia, whom Feste tells him to meet. Feste becomes rather upset and accuses Sebastian of strangeness. Then Sir Andrew comes and strikes Sebastian out of anger, as if he were Cesario. Sir Toby and Sebastian come close to getting in a duel of their own. When Olivia finds them and charges them to stop, Olivia dismisses Sir Toby and asks Sebastian, "Would thou durst be ruled by me?" thinking that he is Cesario due to his great resemblance to his sister. Sebastian now decides to go along with it, struck by Olivia's beauty, thinking it all a pleasant dream from which he hopes he will not awaken. Maria and Feste now conspire to present Feste as the Topaz, the curate, to Malvolio, who is hidden from view. Feste now tries to convince Malvolio that he is crazy, and Malvolio continues to insist that he is not. That has been wrongly incarcerated. Feste then confronts Malvolio as himself and torments him some more. He fakes a conversation with himself as Feste and Sir Topaz, and Malvolio begs for paper and ink so that he can send a message to Olivia. Now Feste promises to fetch these things and exits with a song. Now we come to the last act of this play, where Fabian asks Feste for the letter Malvolio has written. Feste refuses this request, and then Orsino with Viola finds them. Viola points out Antonio, who is being brought to them by officers. Orsino remembers Antonio for a sea battle, and Viola tries to defend Antonio from charges of crime by noting his kindness to her. Antonio claims that he rescued Viola from drowning and that they have been in each other's company ever since. Orsino says that this is nonsense, since Viola has been serving him the whole time. Then Olivia approaches them, still denying Orsino's love while admitting her affection for Viola. Orsino becomes angry at Viola rather than Olivia because of these developments. He begins to suspect Viola of double dealing, and out of his anger he admits his love for Viola, still disguised as a boy. Viola for the first time declares her love for Orsino, much to Olivia's consternation. Olivia counters his declaration by divulging that she was married to Viola as Cesario, she thinks. A priest confirms Olivia's account, and Orsino becomes even more angry at Viola. Sir Andrew and Sir Toby enter, charging Viola with fighting them and injuring them. Viola is again shocked and confused. Now suddenly Sebastian dashes in, apologizing for injuring Sir Toby. He expresses his happiness at seeing Antonio again and acknowledges Olivia as his wife. Viola and Sebastian see each other, and there is a joyful reunion. Here, Sebastian reveals to Olivia that she married him, rather his sister, in disguise. Orsino swears that he loves Viola and will marry her. Then the action turns to Malvolio's condition. His letter is read and his condition explained. Malvolio is upset at this mistreatment, and Olivia attempts to smooth things over. Fabian explains his, Sir Toby's and Maria's part in Malvolio's torment. Then Feste inflames Malvolio's anger and he leaves in a huff. Orsino pronounces that happiness will stay with all of them and that his marriage to Viola will soon be performed. Feste closes the play with a song about the wind and the rain, a reminder that even great happiness is not safe from life's storm. So this is all about the plot of the play. Now let us talk a bit about the title. Now the title of the play is very significant, that is Twelfth Night, or What You Will. Twelfth Night refers to a period of festivities after Christmas, beginning on Christmas Eve and ending on 6th of Jan. So, the speculation usually is that Twelfth Night might have been first produced on 12th night after the Christmas, and that its themes echo a kind of festive atmosphere seen during these 12 days of Christmas. Another important thing is that on this day of 12th night, the traditional hierarchy of the society get inverted. When anything is possible, when people dressed up even as of the opposite gender as well. In terms of the subtitle, you see, Shakespeare here allows his readers to interpret the play in their own ways and gives scope to the characters to play their roles with regard to cross-dressing or different gender roles, giving a grand scope to the play. Now, as a romantic comedy, this Twelfth Night, like all other comedies of Shakespeare, it has an exposition, complication, climax, denouement, and a resolution as well. And the resolution is of course happy. And the comedy arises in this play both from the situation as well as from the character. There is mistaken identity because Olivia actually marries the wrong person and the right person at the same time, in the sense that she could not identify the woman Viola in the man, and eventually marries the man Sebastian, the right person. The audience finds it funny, finding the situational humor. Another thing is, think about the case of Malvolio when he appears before Olivia, cross-gartered, wearing yellow stockings, smiling weirdly. We, the audience, find him funny. What happens to him is not, of course, funny, however, in the end of the play. Fun also arises from such kind of a character. Now, fun also arises from the character such as Malvolio, who is a serious and ambitious character, but the way he is presented, he is made as the butt of ridicule or fun or humor. The next thing is, we should look at the characterization of Sir Andrew Aguecheek, who is a cowardly one. Sir Toby forces him to fight with Viola, who is dressed up as Cesario. And the humor arises because Viola, who is actually a girl dressed up as a boy, is equally uncertain. She doesn't want to fight. And here we have humor arising from the character and the situation as well. Now, in the subplot, we have Malvolio, Sir Toby, and Maria. And Maria brings a letter pretending to have been written by Malvolio. And here what she is doing is, she is here staging a joke, introducing the play within a play technique that Shakespeare also applied in the plays like Hamlet and the like. Now, another thing is, the play is all about festivity. The setting is Illyria. Now, Illyria is a real place set in modern Albania, but it is a place which doesn't have a coastland, and when Shakespeare creates this land, he creates it somewhere which is outside the accepted geography of his time. These are also such important aspects of the play as well. Now, let us talk a bit about the characters, about the three main characters of the play. The Viola, we have Olivia and Orsino. Viola is the heroine, and she stands in the line of the strong characters, strong women characters of Shakespeare's women. She is feminine, gentle, womanly, and delicate, and she is a true beloved above all. She is somebody who gets over all the fragility of the feminine essence as the society rather takes it or looks at it. And she stands at the level of taking her own decision in life as best as she can. Now we have Olivia, who stands absolutely an opposite to Viola in terms of the strength of character, or in terms of the tenacity, or in terms of the flexibility of character as well. Here Olivia stands as somebody who can afford to mourn the death of her brother for a long 7 years, and she here wants to spend a life of detachment, just opposite to Viola, who is spending the entire time by working or playing roles. Finally, there is Duke Orsino, for whom music is an intoxication. She also loves talking about philosophy with Cesario. That is Viola, who is playing the role of a page boy. And when we see Viola and Orsino together, we find that a friendship has been developed between the two. Now, what happens in the end? In the end of the play, we have 3 marriages. As we have previously talked about the characteristic features of a romantic comedy, and here Twelfth Night also corresponds to that feature as well. In the end of this particular play itself, we have 3 marriages. We have the marriage of Toby and Maria. We have the Duke and Viola marriage. At least announcement of of the fact, and we have the marriage of Olivia and Sebastian, right? Now what we have also is what you will hear, what we find that each of the characters, each of them have what they wanted in life. That's all for today. But in the end of this lecture, I would like to add that no lecture is sufficient for your reading of a text. For a better understanding, you may consult this kind of a lecture. First of all, what you should do, you should go to the text itself, and this kind of lecture may only play the role of a help or aid for forming your answer, for having a better understanding. So therefore, I encourage you to go to the text, try to form the answer, consult and listen to this lecture, and you may contact the respective teachers as and when necessary when you are facing an academic problem. Keep well. Thank you.